guys, I'm here with Rob from the Shooter and Fishers Party again. Rob, thanks very much for making time to speak with us again.
Thanks.
So what we want to talk about today is just what is new in the Shooters and Fishers Party. I mean, a year's gone by now, so can you give us a bit of an update with what's happening in the party?
Yeah, there's been some interesting stuff going on. Obviously, we've got a federal election coming on the 14th of September.
Yep.
Shooters and Fishers, as usual, will be running Senate tickets all over Australia, every state plus the Northern Territory.
Yep.
What we are doing, of course, is also making sure that as far as preference allocations are concerned, that no one from any green allocated party will get any of our preferences. So what we always say is if you're a hunter, a shooter or a fisher and you want to vote for us, the best thing to do is vote for your politics in the lower house, and we're not really partial. We don't really tell people how to vote in that area, but you vote for either the Coalition or the Labor Party in the lower house. But what we do say is if you want to protect your culture, your shooting, your hunting, your fishing, you should vote for us in the upper house. We think we've probably got a reasonably good chance of maybe getting someone up in New South Wales. Maybe WA, on the back of what we did in March, getting a member up in the state parliament in WA. And we'll be working closely with like-minded parties all over Australia in our preferencing arrangements. So, for example, here in Victoria we'll work with Country Alliance, in Queensland we'll work with KAP, for example, those sort of things.
Okay, excellent. And what about, I know last year, if we could briefly touch on it, because obviously everyone knows we're from Queensland, so we're sort of a little bit out of we're a little bit out of touch with things, but what's happened with the national park scene in New South Wales?
Well, national parks, there's still the process going on at the moment of doing the risk assessments for the rollout of the national parks. It's still very much on track, although it's been delayed a little bit. There's been a couple of unfortunate things happen, but it's definitely going to happen. There's a review of the Game Council going on at the moment, which really boils down to working out whether the Game Council's actually got enough resources to do what they want to do in relation to managing the National Parks program. We expect that the report will be down by the middle of June, and then after that the government's going to respond, and then we think probably July, early August they'll start actually doing the hunting. Now that's also not to forget the fact that they're also going through a process of getting duck and quail hunting going as well in New South Wales again. So you can actually still shoot duck mitigation in New South Wales for the time being until the conservation program gets up and running properly later in the year. And what we're also going to do is introduce the quail hunting and also a couple of the pigeons, the crested pigeon and the common bronzewing.
Because we're a bit limited in Queensland. We don't have any national park hunting. We don't have any duck season or.
Well, what you need to do is get a Shooters and Fishers Party branch going up there.
That's right. Absolutely, absolutely. So, how's everything going on the on the financial scene with it? Is enough people? Have you noticed an increase from last year with more people helping out? Or
we've seen some very, very, very strong growth in the membership of the party and also our financing. We've copped quite a lot of anti-left-wing press coming out of Fairfax and the ABC primarily, and also the Public Service Association in the rollout or the potential rollout of national parks. But that's had a very positive effect on our membership. It's also had a very positive effect on our fundraising. So I'd encourage any of the National Parks Association people or the PSA to continue what they're doing. Keep attacking us, especially me. I love it. Every time they get stuck into us and me, we see a nice uptick in our funding and donations and a nice uptick in our memberships. So all that publicity is good publicity. The programs will go ahead and they'll be highly, highly successful.
And where would you like to see the party go if you're able to secure a good amount of seats in the federal election? Where would you like to see the party going?
Our ambition is to displace the Greens in the Senate in Canberra and see some common sense brought back into government in Australia. And if we did get elected, one or two or maybe three, who knows how lucky you can get. Our policy has always been to work with the government today, not to be a hindrance to them. So we've practiced that in the past under the Labor government in New South Wales. We're doing it under the current coalition government in New South Wales at the moment. But we also unashamedly say that to do that, we also need to get results for our constituents. And part of that process is sitting down and talking, or try to talk some common sense to the government of the day, so they can work with us to get results for shooters and fishers and four-wheel drivers and a lot of anyone that's interested in the outdoor recreation and cultural activities.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's about, isn't it? I mean, I know that people of my generation, most of the people my age have grown up around firearms or fishing. That's what you did on the weekends. And I mean, personally, I'd really think it would be a shame to sort of see that all go down the drain, so to speak, where from a legislation point of view, there was just unnecessary restrictions put on us.
Well, look, there's been an ongoing process of unnecessary restrictions since '96 gun laws were put in place.
Yeah.
They were put in place in a highly emotion-charged political atmosphere. The 1996 National Firearms Agreements needs to be reviewed.
Yep.
The current form needs to be abolished.
Yeah.
And we need to sit down and have a quiet look at what we can do to fix it so that law-abiding firearms owners can go about quietly observing their culture and observing their legal pursuits without undue interference and without the ongoing process that we're seeing around Australia of the potential wind back of firearms ownership and licensing.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable that this occur. I think that's one of the key reasons why we're seeing in New South Wales particularly, but also in other states in Australia, a generalised upsurge in the interest of people wanting to go hunting.
Yep.
And the marine park programs that are being set up both federally and at the state level around Australia are having a very detrimental effect on fishing, and none of it's based on science, for example.
Yeah.
So that's also another area that needs to be looked at very closely.
Yep.
We've done some work in that area already in New South Wales with national parks, the merging of the Marine Parks Authority and the national and into the Department of Agriculture, for example.
Yep.
And the government in New South Wales having a very close look at marine park management.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
they've already changed some of the rules around fishing in marine parks, and we're going to continue to encourage the government of New South Wales to do more, and they've indicated that they will do more.
And unfortunately, I mean, I know from just reading local newspapers, up in Queensland there, unfortunately the way that it's projected, especially with hunting in national parks, it'd be easy for someone to, I suppose, interpret what they're saying is, just a bunch of crazy people with firearms going out and blasting away at everything that moves, when really the reality of it, correct me if I'm wrong, it's controlled, and you've got people who know what they're doing, and they're going out there specifically targeting pest species.
That's right. And the programs are basically mitigation programs. And national parks. See, it's an interesting conundrum because, not for us, but for the Greenies and the government, because in New South Wales, over 16 years, more than half the national parks were created from state forest.
Yep.
Now they're saying, well, those state forests that are now national parks, they're too high a conservation value to allow hunters in there. Well, that's an interesting thing, because the high value conservation was created under the management of state forests.
Yep.
And hunters like me.
Yeah.
So now they're saying, well, hang on a second, now that national parks have got them, those conservation values can't be preserved if we get access to those parks, or in fact if state forests start to be able to log them again.
Yeah.
So in other words, what we're seeing is just plain bullshit and politics.
Yeah.
That's what it's all
Absolutely.
about. If they were well enough managed under state forests for the best part of 100 years in New South Wales, or we can assume then, under the management of national parks, their conservation value will go down.
Yeah.
Because they don't do any management.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I think sanity will prevail in the end, and that's part of what we do.
Yeah.
We get out there and try to tell the truth rather than allow the spin and the lies that have been projected by certain parts of the media.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, look, Rob, we really wish you the best in the upcoming election, and thanks very much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thanks very much.
All right, guys, what we'll do, as we did with last year's review, is we'll put the link to the Shooter and Fishers Party website underneath this video for you to log on, check out, and by all means, please support them. If you believe in their values, please get on, support, help out with some donations, because I'm sure it'll be very much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks a lot.